You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 21st of August 2013. Met's looters charter scrapped. 7 Asians cleared in High Wycombe grooming case. Your medical records for sale to private firms. Swiss cantons seek DNA tests for asylum seekers. Al-Qaeda targeting European railways. Greece plans Aegean Islands campsite. Belgium, Syrian fighters' benefits cut. Egyptian Defence Minister orders rebuilding of Coptic churches. Western press bias, 36 Islamic prisoners die and escape big as Egyptian state sets about wiping out Muslim Brotherhood. Thought for the day, are we progressing or regressing? And finally, a real heavy rescue operation. UK news. Met's looters charter scrapped. Plans by police in London not to arrest shoplifters who take goods worth less than £50 have been scrapped after being branded a looters charter by shopkeepers. Police in Hammersmith and Fulham, home to the Westfield shopping centre, Britain's worst shoplifting hotspot, said that the radical scheme would allow them to focus on more serious offences. Officers were planning to pilot the scheme after telling local businesses and town hall bosses that they should deal with low-level crimes themselves rather than calling 999. World at 8 comments. They also need to get their real looters charter right. During the riots 2 summers ago, they just stood by while mainly ethnic people ransacked homes and businesses. In any proper society, looters are shot on sight in times of civil unrest. 7 Asians cleared in High Wycombe grooming case. An Oxford Crown Court jury cleared 7 men from a gang of 10 of rape and the conspiracy to rape a girl over a 5-year period. The jury was discharged after failing to reach a majority verdict on 3 other men who faced a total of 15 counts. The offences are said to have been carried out in High Wycombe between 2007 and 2012, when the victim was between 11 and almost 16. The men found not guilty, who all live in High Wycombe, are Asif Hussain, 21 of Plummer Road, Jabroan Khan, 21 of Rutland Avenue, Amar Rafiq, 19 Castleview Gardens, Mohammed Adnan, 21 of Upper Green Street, Qassam Dad, 23 of Gibbs Close, Ramiz Ali, 21 of West End Street, and Junaid Sharif, 26 of Cambridge Crescent. Prosecutors will decide by the 2nd of August on whether to seek a retrial of brothers Iblal Fiaz, 21, and Khasim Fiaz, 23, both of St George's Close, High Wycombe, who deny multiple rape charges, and Mudassar Hussain, 19, of Abbey Barn Road, High Wycombe, denies 1 charge of rape. Iblal Fiaz also denies conspiracy to rape, trafficking in the UK for sexual exploitation, sexual activity with a child, and causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity. World at 8 says, "This is disgusting and points the way for things to come. I would like to know the religious affiliation of some of the jurors and whether they've been got at. It smacks of jury rigging to me. The child was 11 years old when this abuse started. What is right with that? She was underage, and these bastards don't expend any time or money on a child unless they get rewards from pimping them out. Fact. So now British courts have paved the way for these Muslims to get away with it. I wonder how they'll treat the so-called white guys they've arrested in yet another case of sexual grooming." Your medical records for sale to private firms. A secret plan to sell confidential medical records to private companies for as little as £1 has been drawn up by officials. The Daily Mail reports that from the next month, GPs will start sending detailed NHS patient records to a central database for the first time under the new General Practice Extraction Service, GPES. Yet doctors do not have to tell patients about the project, described by campaigners as an unprecedented threat to medical confidentiality. The records, held for every person registered with a GP, will contain details of medical conditions, as well as identifiable information including a patient's NHS number, postcode and date of birth. Private firms such as Bupa can then apply to the health service to buy and use data from the records for research. World at 8 comments, "I thought we were allowed to have possession of our medical records under the Freedom of Information Act. If so, why can't we keep our own paper records in-house? The fact that they have all been put on computers, of course, means they are open to all, not just our GPs. Surely we can object. Identical twins charged with rape as DNA cannot distinguish them. Identical twins have appeared in court in connection with the rape of a woman as they cannot be distinguished by their DNA. Mohammed and Aftab Ashgar were bailed ahead of a December trial, but prosecutors said it possible that only one of the defendants faces trial over the rape which took place in November 2 years ago. The 22-year-olds were due to enter pleas at Reading Crown Court in Berkshire, but no details about the sexual assault have yet been given. It's an unusual case, they are identical twins. The allegation is one of rape, said prosecutor Sandra Beck, who has requested more time to pursue particular lines of inquiry. There's further work due and there's an indication which would tend to support that one was not at the location. It may mean that only one of the defendants faces trial. Identical twins have the same DNA but different fingerprints. A similar case unfolded in France earlier this year when 24-year-old brothers known as Johan and Elwin were arrested in Marseille in connection with the rape of 6 women aged between 22 and 76, as police could not tell them apart based on their DNA. European news. Swiss cantons seek DNA tests for asylum seekers. Certain Swiss cantons are demanding systematic DNA tests on asylum seekers, specifically Eritreans, who say they're coming to the country to join family members, a newspaper reported Sunday. Eritreans represent the largest group seeking asylum in Switzerland, with nearly 6,000 requests currently pending in the country. In June, Swiss voters in a referendum overwhelmingly approved stricter asylum criteria, notably the removal of military desertion as a valid reason for asylum. That had been the key reason cited by Eritreans, whose country imposes unlimited and underpaid military service on all able-bodied men and women. According to the Schweiz am Sonntag newspaper, Eritreans also make more requests than any other nationality to bring over relatives under the family reunification programme. Identity papers or birth certificates must be considered as suspect when presented by people seeking residence under the family reunification programme, said Iris Rivas, head of migration services in the canton of Bern. She told the newspaper that in many home countries of asylum seekers, official papers are easy to forge and their embassies in Switzerland verify only whether the surnames given match those of the petitioners. The call for DNA testing is also supported by the canton of Lucerne's migration chief, Alexander Leib. Identity control in the case of family reunification is too lax, he said. Swiss laws currently allow case-by-case requests for DNA tests when there is serious doubt that a claimant belongs to the same family. Switzerland is among the European countries that welcomes the most asylum seekers in proportion to its population, and numbers have soared in recent years, in part due to the Arab Spring uprisings. The country has faced a barrage of criticism over its treatment of asylum seekers, including segregation and poor living conditions. World at 8. We need to adopt many of the Swiss dealings with immigration. We will have to prove less popular one day, or we'll all sink. Al-Qaeda targeting European railways. Al-Qaeda is plotting attacks on Europe's high-speed rail network, German newspaper Bild reported on Monday, citing intelligence sources. According to Bild, the militant group was possibly targeting trains and tunnels with the intention to sabotage railway tracks and the electric cabling. The German newspaper cited the information as coming from a conference call intercepted by the US National Security Agency involving high-ranking Al-Qaeda operatives. As a result, authorities deployed undercover police officers at main stations and along major routes. At the beginning of August, suspected plots by an affiliate of the terror group led the State Department to issue a worldwide travel alert for the entire month, citing an Al-Qaeda plot to attack Western diplomatic delegations. Congress said that the US intelligence agencies picked up on the Al-Qaeda plot through surveillance technologies. The US then closed 21 embassies and consulates on Sunday located in the Middle East, North Africa and South Asia out of abundance of caution. Greek plans Aegean Islands campsites. Immigrants unlawfully pouring into Greece in hopes of finding asylum or going to other countries will be sheltered in campsites or islands in the Aegean, Greek Reporter website writes, quoting Greek Minister of Shipping and the Aegean Miliardis Varvitsiotis as saying. Talking to the Greek radio station Vimar 99.5, the minister said tents and chemical toilets will be set up in the spaces of temporary accommodation. Prime Minister Antonis Samaras has authorised ministers to make decisions without consulting Parliament, and an order for the release of money for the campsites was expected to be given. Belgium, Syrian fighters' benefits cut. Municipal authorities in Antwerp and Vilvoorde have removed 29 people who have left Belgium to fight in Syria from social welfare registers, effectively cutting them off from all state benefits. De Standaard explained that in recent months, Belgian police and intelligence services have found that in several cases, Belgian nationals fighting alongside Syrian rebels continue to receive social welfare payments, including unemployment benefit. Notwithstanding major upset over the issue in the Muslim community, there will be further departures for Syria, declared the mayor of Vilvoorde. World News. Egyptian Defence Minister orders rebuilding of Coptic churches. Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham should take lessons in courage from Egyptian Defence Minister Colonel General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who has vowed to rebuild Coptic churches destroyed by the Muslim Brotherhood. Not only is the courageous al-Sisi vowing to rebuild Muslim Brotherhood destroyed Coptic churches, but his order aims to have them rebuilt ASAP, according to the Mideast Christian News. The Egyptian Defence Minister ordered the engineering department of the armed forces to swiftly repair all the affected churches in recognition of the historical and national role played by our Coptic brothers, read a statement that was aired on Egyptian television. The Egyptian Defence Minister has ordered the repair and reconstruction of all churches that suffered damage in the country's violent demonstrations since the Egyptian military removed President Mohamed Morsi from power last month. Defence Minister Colonel General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi intends to fix the damage to Coptic churches at Rabah, Adawiya and Nahda squares, and says that the Muslim Brotherhood should pay the cost to rebuild them. World at 8. I like this man al-Sisi. Hopefully he will not allow the Muslim Brotherhood to parallel what happened in Egypt when Islam came to that country 800 years ago. The Muslims destroyed nearly all the ancient Egyptian buildings or buried them in the sand, and there they remained until the last century when the Germans and English dug them up. The Copts and the churches are part of Egypt's rich history and need to be preserved. Western press bias. 36 Islamist prisoners die in escape bid as Egyptian state sets about wiping out Muslim Brotherhood. The Telegraph tells us emphatically and unequivocally the Egyptian state is to wipe out the Muslim Brotherhood. At least 36 Islamist prisoners have been killed in Egypt after an apparent attempt to escape during their transfer to a prison outside Cairo. The Muslim Brotherhood described the incident as cold-blooded killing. Prime Minister David Cameron and French President François Hollande have called for today's meeting of ambassadors in Brussels to be followed by an emergency session of EU foreign ministers. After a week in which several hundred people have died during some of the worst mass slaughter Egypt has ever known in its modern history, the nation's leaders may be wondering how much killing it'll take to bring the Muslim Brotherhood to heel. Hundreds of Islamists were detained during early morning raids yesterday, while Egypt's Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi made a statement in which he issued veiled threats against the group. Yet still the Brotherhood and its allies ordered mass rallies on the streets of the capital today. It came as the country's interim government, whose transitional roadmap has been virtually obscured by the torrents of blood spilled over the past week, moved to eradicate the Brotherhood once and for all as a political force. The cabinet reportedly began deliberations on how to ban the group, a move that would hark back to the eras of previous Egyptian autocrats who tried to cow its leaders using intimidation, imprisonment and execution. The Prime Minister Hazem el-Bablawi, who suggested outlawing the 85-year-old Brotherhood, told reporters over the weekend, "There will be no reconciliation with those whose hands have been stained with blood and who turned weapons against the state and its institutions." Meanwhile, General al-Sisi, who has become a hugely popular figure in Egypt since last month's coup, said in his statement that the military will not stand by silently watching the destruction of the country and the people or the torching of the nation and terrorising the citizens. Despite General al-Sisi's statement yesterday that there is room for everyone in Egypt, any kind of political solution now looks inconceivable. World at 8. One can see the Western press and governments are still championing the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic fanatics. It's difficult to find anywhere the so-called legitimate press of any mention of the Muslim Brotherhood's wanton attack on Coptic and other Christians and the destruction of their institutions and churches. Well, I say good to the army and beware Camorra and his Euro-prats. My advice to al-Sisi? Ignore them like Syria does. It's none of our business. At least the General has pledged to rebuild the churches and protect Christians of all faiths, and that is one problem no Western government has even acknowledged or condemned. Thought for the day: are we progressing or regressing? A fairly serious thought occurred to me yesterday, and it was, are we in the UK progressing or regressing? Are we losing or have lost what we gained after World War II with the advent of so-called progress? We have lost in those years many things that were quintessentially British or English, and the sad part is that much of this we owe to corporate inventions, the financial markets and the new think tanks, plus thought processes most of which originate in the States or indeed Europe. The loss of our good basic education system and the choices that were around 40 years ago are no longer with us, and yet we have had many ministers of education from many governments and all have failed us. Why? Because they've been trying and sadly succeeding in making our education system an international education system, and in doing so they've lost the basic principles of teaching British values in a British country, because most of their pupils are not English, or indeed even speak English in many schools. Because of this fact we now employ so-called teachers who apply the diversity ethos to the detriment of our own Indigenous children. A case highlighted in a letter to the Daily Mail at the end of July from a reader in Hornchurch, Essex, in which he said that whilst doing family research he had approached a school in Leytonstone where his parents and cousins had been educated. The head told him there was only one white boy in the school now and he was leaving, and the only English used in that school was from the Caribbean children who used a patois or rap speak. The ethnic children play with their own tribes and speak their own language in their own homes. So what chance does the English language stand of being taught? Let alone English history, religion and culture? Absolutely none. So put that with the ever-changing exam system and the dumbing down of the actual exams to bring pass rates to second-rate universities high, and you have a recipe for disaster. Education on an international level stops working for everyone. Our education system has regressed. The same can be said for our NHS, the only really good thing that Labour did after the war, and although when working I paid into a private health plan and enjoyed the difference, because my friends there is a vast difference, I was also paying into the national pot to pay for people who were, like I am now, unable to afford private health care. So I paid, like so many others, double bubble. So it grieves me that this marvellous idea has become a shadow of its former self. This is down to bad management and massive immigration without doubt, although when the media does a programme on the NHS they never show the waiting rooms of the local GPs or A&E having other than a smattering of ethnics newly arrived to suck off the system. Once again a plan that was introduced by the Brits for the Brits has become international, and they're wondering why all the pressure and lack of money applies mainly to the heavily enriched areas of our cities and country. We nationalists see it, and it isn't racist to blame immigration, it's a fact, and a very sad fact at that. The UK NHS cannot sustain any more health tourists, or indeed the immigration level itself and the ethnic birth rates that are now well underway. This is despite the many good medical staff that immigration has brought in. It has also brought in cheap and unqualified labour and given these people their own people to care for in vast numbers. This is yet another change which can be put down to governments and ministers afraid to face up to the truth at the price of our health and progress as a nation. Our NHS has regressed. Now take our British way of life. Go back 40 years and look at films around that time. What do you see? You see high streets occupied with people, mainly of our own tribe, walking around, no graffiti or drunkenness, no Muslim protesters, shops that are open and flourishing, walk-in banks and building societies, children in large prams or walking, not huddled up in pushchairs, a well-dressed, clean-looking population from whichever section of society, Not perfect, and I'm sure there was a much less pretty picture available in some large towns and villages, but all in all preferable to what is shown, or rather not shown, today. Now I put this down to computers, the EU, corporate greed, immigration and the way successive governments have trained us as a people with a form of social engineering that no other country or people would put up with. Now computers, of which I spoke on Monday. Great things, useful things, but still machines at the service of humans, or are they? Like all great inventions, give them to the people and they bugger them up. Ignore medical ones and for the most part office equipment. We're starting with the humble cash register in what used to be individual shops. When they first came in, everyone thought wonderful. No more the metal tin in the large pipe whisking back and forth with bits of paper in them as in the larger shops. No, everything quicker and more efficient. Then came the bright idea of inventing self-service in the supermarkets, when quite a few of the little shops on the high street had to close down. And this is where progress is regressive. Not only did it put many workers out of work, but speaking or doing business with a machine is not everything it's cracked up to be. I used to like chatting when shopping, and you can't chat to a machine, but I have been known to craftily belt one in sheer frustration. I never use them now, I go to the normal checkouts. But more and more businesses are laying off people and installing machines. Even our local library has gone self-service. Horrible, quite horrible, as there you have no choice. The librarians are just there to advise and help, which they have to do quite a lot. This is just the start. Whilst we're importing thousands of cheap workers to take over from the apparently lazy Brits, we're also changing human workers to machines through self-service. Now, I'm not an economist, but any prat can see if you keep importing cheap foreign labour and keep effectively reducing the amount of workers and jobs you need by introducing computers into everything, who will get the remaining jobs if indeed in a few years' time we're not totally mechanised in various workplaces? Your answers on a postcard, please. Computers and corporate greed have effectively killed our high streets and taken away our choices. Small dedicated shops have closed and even the larger original family stores have gone or under threat. From whom? The large supermarkets, which have become the churches of the masses and a haven for mechanisation. You can now buy anything from the larger supermarkets, and I mean anything. And if you can't be bothered to actually raise your butt from its seat, you can buy online. That new and even greater destroyer of socialising with your fellow man. I bought 5 items online in my life, and they're all things which the local boots have stopped stocking. I would never buy anything I couldn't see and feel, but then that's me. I must be resigned to the fact that we Brits and the UK have been socially engineered by our governments and the EU into being a communist state with Islamic overtones. Our famous high streets, of which Napoleon stated we were a nation of shopkeepers, have vanished, and the only shops we have left are betting shops, pawn shops, money shops, pound saver type shops, Asian tat shops, Asian or Polish corner shops, nail bars or homes for illegal immigrants and ladies of the night, and the odd just cut. What you won't see are the small dedicated shops anymore. You know, a greengrocer for greens, a sewing shop for wool and thread, a butcher for fresh non-halal meat and eggs, a grocer for dry goods and treats, a sweet shop for even bigger treats like sherbet dipped with a licorice straw, my personal favourite, and record shops for vinyl. Nothing remotely like these British institutions now exist. Even Woolies, another childhood favourite, has gone. Also, you won't see many people other than in the lunch hour as they're all working. We are no longer a nation of anything much. Our high streets and day-to-day way of life have regressed. Our social interaction has been stopped under the guise of the health and safety zealots and the EU. Just look at what existed in the days of old, if you wanted to meet up with friends or make new ones or was simply on the pull. Coffee bars, drinking clubs, small restaurants, nightclubs, various membership clubs or clubs for youngsters, dance halls, cinemas, often with licensing for booze, theatres, public houses abounded, tea rooms, singles discos, and of course if you were working, ending the day at the pub was the norm, and firms had social occasions as well. People gave parties without fear of them being hijacked via Twitter and a load of retards breaking up the joint. Now what do youngsters have? Nothing. Well, nothing that's printable apart from raves, drink and drugs and of course computers. which is what we all have in the end if we can afford one. Now that is the new way of socialising and meeting people or partners via a screen and a keyboard. Very, very sad, and clearly it ain't working. Vis-a-vis all the speed dating in pubs or what's left of them. The stop smoking ban affected all the public houses in the UK without a doubt, most of which have had to close as all the people that smoked drank as well. Either that or make an open space in their garden for smokers, which is useless in the freezing winter. Coffee shops have had this problem as well. A coffee and a fag apparently go well together, but not facing the main road with traffic whistling past in the snow. Now this EU ban is very odd because when in Spain last, everyone ignored that ban and smoked in the restaurants and everywhere else. By closing pubs and allowing Asian corner shops to stock and sell cheap alcohol, we have effectively done away with the old-fashioned public house, and instead we have a brave new yuppied pub, corporate owned, mostly frequented by youngsters at night and staffed by foreigners and serving mainly curries and chili con carne. There's nowhere anyone over 35 can go to relax or meet their own tribe. This is the only country in Europe and probably the world where this situation exists. The working and middle classes are ignored socially, which is to some extent why our young are encouraged to have careers, not marry and not produce. It's not promoted by our think tanks or our media for our people. Thus our social interaction and meeting strategies have regressed. Man should not be alone is true, as is an Englishman's home his castle, only now it's his prison. He's not encouraged to leave it for anything. Everything he needs is in the home, to the extent of buying everything online, even a partner, and having it delivered, and thus you have a complacent, none-thinking, none-questioning society, happy to accommodate anything and anyone in their country because they no longer see the problems. They read about them in some papers, but the solution is never given or spoken of. Thus we are all lemmings fastly approaching the white cliffs of Dover and falling off the sodding thing. But we will all die happy knowing we have not rocked the boat and done everything that our governments, our establishment, our EU friends and the multicultural think tanks, along with the Marxist Labour bods, thought would lessen our lot in life and increased theirs. Now that's what they call progress, isn't it? And finally, a genuinely heavy rescue op. A Saudi man, Khalid Shari, thought to be the second heaviest man ever recorded, has been airlifted out of his home on the orders of King Abdullah and has been transported to hospital to receive expert medical attention. Unable to move, he's been bedbound for 2.5 years, during which time his weight has increased dramatically to around 96 stone. Part of the building where Mr Shari lived had to be demolished so that he could be wheeled onto a forklift truck. He was then driven to a specially equipped military plane sent by the King, who is also covering the costs of Mr Shari's medical treatment at King Medical City in the Saudi capital. One of Mr Shari's relatives, Nasser Mike, said he was relieved and grateful that Khalid was receiving treatment now. Mr Shari is thought to be the second to the largest man in the world, who was an American, John Mimick, who died in 1983 weighing 99 stone. This presenter says, "I watched the video and it was a wonder they got a forklift big enough for him. He is virtually never ending. I can't think what they'll do in hospital for him, because he's too big to operate on to reduce his girth at the moment. Perhaps bread and water for a year will help. They just need to think of him as a Christian and then starve him accordingly." You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.